Thank you. Hi, everyone, and I join Sarah in welcoming you to our Active and Thriving Community Grants Program briefing. We're really excited to present this program to you and hope that through this presentation, we are able to answer a lot of the questions that you may have. We will also ask you to visit our website for this program, which contains all of this information. We'll be posting the website information in the chat, and it will also be available on a slide at the end of the presentation. We'll also make this slide deck available to you. And as Sarah mentioned, we are recording it. So if you feel like you missed something, you can listen to it again, or you can share the recording with your colleagues. So Jessica, if you could please start the slide presentation. Fabulous, thank you. So again, my name is Sarah White. I work in the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services. And this particular grant opportunity is a partnership among several county entities, including my agency, the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services, the Office for Children, and the Park Authority. We are also partnering with the Latino Economic Development Center for application support. As I go through this presentation, I will be indicating which slide I'm on. This is for the benefit of people who might be listening later to the recording, and also for my colleague Jessica, who's advancing the slides for me. Again, we do have you muted for this session, and please go ahead and type any questions that you have in the chat feature, and we'll answer as many as we can in the time that we have at the end of the presentation. So slide 2, please. So the Federal American Rescue Plan Act, which is known as ARPA, is the source of funding for the Active and Thriving Community Grants Program. ARPA allocated state and local fiscal recovery funds to us here in Fairfax County. And among other uses, the county can use the funds to respond to the negative economic impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, including assistance to small businesses and nonprofits. So for our particular initiative that we're talking about today, we are targeting $10 million of the ARPA money to the 5 sectors that you see here on this slide: childcare providers, community-based organizations who provide safety net services, youth athletic programs, out-of-school time providers, and outdoor community pools. Slide 3, please. So why do we need this program? As we all know, our community is still experiencing negative impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic. The 5 sectors that we are working with for this grant have not escaped these negative impacts. First, childcare. There are ongoing significant negative impacts from the pandemic on the childcare infrastructure. In a March 2021 Fairfax County survey of childcare programs, over 52% of programs that responded to the survey stated that they did not know how long they would be able to stay open without financial support. The potential closure of childcare programs could come at a time when more parents are returning to work, impacting working parents and their children, employers, the childcare workforce, and their families. Economic recovery and long-term success is contingent upon workforce access to affordable quality childcare, which is why they're an important sector of our grant initiative. Next, out-of-school time programs. Out-of-school time programs are a critical component of the childcare system. Out-of-school time programs, which are the after-school and summer programs, these providers have been especially hard hit during the pandemic. Most had to close completely in March of 2020 for the remainder of the school year and throughout the summer. Many have not been fully operational in 2021. This also affects working parents, their children, and the childcare system. The third area that we are highlighting, community-based organizations. Community-based organizations provide vital services to communities, and the community need for these services continues to grow. Many Fairfax County community-based organizations continue to struggle economically due to the COVID-19 public health emergency. Most have had to cancel or significantly alter their major fundraising events. And for many, the giving levels have not returned to prior pandemic levels. Our fourth area of focus, youth sports organizations. Many of our county sports organizations have been negatively financially impacted by the pandemic. Community sports organizations provide a critical role in accessible, positive, healthy activity for our county's youth. These organizations provide opportunities for all Fairfax County youth to participate in organized sports. And finally, outdoor swimming pools, including those maintained by homeowners associations, apartment complexes, and community organizations, all have experienced negative economic impacts from the COVID-19 public health emergency. Like other recreation organizations, swimming pools report a reduction in revenue through membership fees while continuing to have expenditures. So these 5 sectors that I just mentioned, childcare, out of school time, community-based organizations, youth athletic organizations, and swimming pools are critical pillars to an active and thriving community. And that's why we're supporting those 5 sectors in this grant program. Slide 4, please. There have been other county grant initiatives that have targeted the sustainability and recovery of many of the businesses and nonprofits in our community. The Pivot program, which has been coordinated out of the Department of Economic Initiatives, targeted assistance to hotels, restaurants, and the entertainment industry. This program opened in June of 2021. The application period for this program has closed, and the county is still in the process of making awards. The nonprofit sustainability grants that were awarded last fall were developed to ensure safety net organizations would remain fiscally viable and able to continue to provide services despite the impacts of the pandemic. The county awarded 149 grants in this program. There was also the RISE program in the summer of 2020, which provided immediate relief to small businesses and nonprofits impacted by the pandemic. So as you can see from these examples, Fairfax County is committed to using all available resources to help our community and our residents recover from the pandemic. Slide 5. This slide provides important application information. As you can see, the initial application process will open starting at 10:00 a.m. on August 31st. And will close at 11:59 p.m. on September 14th. You can access the registration link beginning on August 31 from the website. This is the only place where you will be able to apply. And there is no advantage to being first in line. You can apply at any time during that 2-week period. The application will be available in English and Spanish, and translation support for other languages will be available. Staff from our partner agency, LEDC, will be available during business hours to provide technical assistance for the application. All initial applications, again, will incur during the August 31st to September 14th timeframe. No new applications will be accepted after September 14th. However, the application portal will continue to be used for subsequent phases of the grant process, such as submitting required documentation for those who receive grant awards and submitting receipts. If we receive more applications than we have funding for, a lottery system will be used to select awardees. Slide 6. This slide shows the various ways that funding can be used. As you can see, the funding can be used to mitigate financial hardship, including supporting payroll and benefit costs, costs that might be incurred to retain employees, mortgage or rent costs, costs for utilities, and other critical operating costs as determined by the county. The funding can also be used for COVID-19 prevention or mitigation tactics, such as physical changes to enable social distance, enhanced cleaning efforts, or the construction of barriers or partitions. Slide 7. Our county's One Fairfax policy commits the county and schools to consider equity when making policies, planning, and delivering programs and services. While COVID-19 is a public health crisis, Fairfax County is confronting it, recognizing that health is tied to the conditions that people live in and the opportunities they have for housing, jobs, transportation, education, healthcare, and more. And while anyone can contract COVID-19, we acknowledge that social and economic conditions in the community are making some people more vulnerable to the effects of the disease than others. The county has shown its commitment to considering equity in COVID-19 response and recovery throughout countywide efforts, such as the strategic plan, the Economic Recovery Task Force, and the Chairman's Task Force on Equity and Opportunity. We are also considering equity in the disbursement of funding in response to the pandemic, and that includes this Active and Thriving Communities Grants Program. As you see on this slide, the county is developing a COVID-19 Recovery Index. Selection for grant awards may be informed by a community's Recovery Index score. Slide 8. All applicants for the Active and Thriving Community Grant Program must be a nonprofit or a small business. This slide shows the general criteria that any organization applying as a small business or a nonprofit must meet. You can find the U.S. Treasury definitions for small business and nonprofits on our website. In addition, there is criteria that must be met for each sector. The criteria for each sector and the award allocation for each sector will be different, and I will be highlighting that in subsequent slides. Slide 9, please. In addition to the general criteria that all small businesses and nonprofits must meet, we do have several categories that are ineligible for awards. These are listed here. If you have specific questions about your particular eligibility, we encourage you to submit them to us using the contact information that I'll give you at the end of this presentation. If item number 4 here applies to you, we will reach out directly to discuss it with your organization. Slide 10. The next few slides will provide a little bit more information about each of our 5 sectors. So I'm starting here with childcare. All childcare applicants must be regulated, and we list here the different types of licenses and permits. They also must be currently open for business. Slide 11. This slide describes how funding will be awarded for childcare applicants. All eligible childcare providers and centers within vulnerable areas and or who support the county's childcare subsidy program will be awarded. After those awards are given, all other childcare providers, presuming they're eligible, will be entered into a lottery for the remaining funds. Next slide, please. Slide 12. Here you can see the award levels that will be given to childcare providers. The awards are based on the number of children in the program. At this point, I'd like to let any childcare providers who are listening to this briefing, I'd like to let you know that our Office for Children is holding a special information session just for childcare providers. That session will be Tuesday, August 24th. The English version will be from 6 o'clock to 6:45 p.m. And the presentation will be provided in Spanish from 7 o'clock to 7:45 p.m. Again, that's Tuesday, August 24th. And our Office for Children staff will put this information in the chat. If they haven't already, I'm sure they will shortly. Slide 13. Our next sector is out of school time programs. In addition to the general criteria that applies across all sectors, these bullets are also criteria that must be met. Programs must provide direct recreation and or educational services to school-aged youth before school, after school, and or during school breaks. Organizations may administer programs at their own facility or be contracted to administer programs at another facility. And you must offer structured group programs that meet on a regularly set schedule. Slide 14. We hope to award all eligible applicants in the out-of-school time sector. However, if eligible applicants exceed funding, the first grants awarded will be to applicants who serve a majority of participants from vulnerable communities. If additional funding remains, there will be a lottery for all remaining applicants. Slide 15. This slide shows the grant levels for out-of-school time awards. These grant levels are based on what we are calling participant days. As you can see in the small print below the table, a participant day is defined as the number of participants in a program multiplied by the number of days the program operated. Slide 16. The next 3 slides will be specifically for community-based organizations. In addition to the general criteria items that were shown on slide 8, community-based organizations must also meet this additional criteria. They must be a social safety net organization whose primary focus is on serving people from communities who are more vulnerable to self-sufficiency problems. And they must be in at least one of the fiscal year 2021 consolidated community funding pool categories that are listed here. Slide 17. This slide shows how awards will be allocated for community-based organizations. If there's enough funding, all eligible organizations will be awarded. If eligible applicants exceed the available funding, the first awarded grants will go to the nonprofits that service vulnerable communities. We will use a lottery system for this if we need to. And then if any additional funding remains, there will be a lottery for all remaining applicants. Slide 18. These are the award levels for community-based organizations. For this group, grant levels are based on the number of full-time employee equivalents within the organization. Slide 19. We will now turn to youth sports organizations. This slide shows the additional criteria for this sector. Again, these 3 items are in addition to the general criteria that applies across all the sectors. The key for this sector is that the organization must provide programming for youth under the age of 18. We are also requiring that the majority of youth sports participants served by the organization must be Fairfax County residents. Slide 20. We hope to award all eligible applicants in this sector. However, if eligible applicants exceed funding, the first grants awarded will be to organizations who serve a majority of participants, meaning 51% and above, from vulnerable communities. And again, if funding remains, there will be a lottery for all remaining applicants. Slide 21. Award amounts for the youth sports organization sector will be based on the number of participants. And as mentioned previously, this will be determined by only the documented number of Fairfax County residents under the age of 18. Slide 22. Our final sector is community pools. As you can see, in addition to the general criteria for all sectors, pools must be outdoor pools associated with a homeowners association, an apartment or condominium complex, or a community membership-based pool. They must be permitted by the health department and open only during the summer season. Slide 23. If funding allows, all pools that meet the eligibility criteria will be awarded. If eligible applicants exceed funding, the first grants awarded will be to applicants located in vulnerable communities. And as with our other sectors, there will be a lottery for all remaining applicants. Slide 24. For the grant levels for community pools, we are basing awards on the size of the pool. There are 3 different grant levels for this sector. I'm aware that I have covered a lot of information in the slides about each sector. Again, this slide deck will be available, and we will also have a recording of this presentation that can be reviewed. Information about each sector is also available on our website. Slide 25. We are thrilled to partner with the Latino Economic Development Center for this program. LEDC will be serving as our grant administrator. They are leading the development of our application portal and will be performing intake, eligibility review, and award determinations for us. They will also be the primary support for any questions that occur in the application process or any technical support that is needed. They have bilingual English-Spanish staff on hand and will be able to communicate with you via live chat as you are applying. Working with LEDC, we are committed to making this process as seamless as possible. Slide 26. For the remainder of my portion of today's meeting, I'd like to address a few of what I think will be frequently asked questions. These and many more FAQs are also found on our website. Question: I received a COVID-19 grant previously. Can I apply for this one? Answer: yes, but funding cannot be used for the same expenses that have been covered under another federal, local, or state COVID-19 program or contract. For example, if you used another grant to pay rent for July of 2020, you cannot use this grant to also pay rent for July 2020, but you could use this funding to pay for rent for other eligible months. Question: can I apply for funding in more than one sector? Answer: yes, however, you will only receive one grant award. If you are eligible for awards in multiple sectors, you will be awarded the one with the highest value. Question: will the number of grant awards be evenly divided among the 5 sectors? No, the funding levels are different for each sector. The total amount to be awarded across all 5 sectors is $10 million. Question: how do I demonstrate a 15% decrease in revenue during COVID-19? Answer: applicants must demonstrate 15% or greater loss in annual revenue between 2019 and 2020. This will be done by comparing 2019 and 2020 tax returns. If this difference does not equal at least a 15% reduction, a business will be deemed ineligible for an active and thriving community grant. Our partners at LEDC will be available to help walk applicants through this sort of documentation and other questions that will be required to demonstrate revenue decreases. Question: I have been notified that I am eligible for a pivot grant. Am I eligible for this program? Answer: if you have been notified that you are under consideration for a pivot grant, you may still apply for an active and thriving community grant. However, if you are awarded a pivot grant, you will be removed from consideration for active and thriving community grants. As many more questions are likely to arise, we will update our website with additional FAQs. Any questions that are answered during today's section will also go onto the website. And please remember that our partners at LEDC will be there to guide you through every step of the application process. If you aren't sure what document is needed or what a specific question means, they will guide you through it. Slide 27. Our website, which you see here at the bottom, is our go-to source for information about the grant. We also have several ways for you to get in touch with us. If you don't find the information you are looking for on the website, feel free to reach out to us by phone or by email. Slide 28. Thank you for your attention during this presentation. And at this point, we will take a look at any questions that get posted in the chat. There is a team of subject matter experts on hand to help answer some of these questions. You've already seen Sarah Allen, our Deputy Director of the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services. Jesse Ellis, who is the manager of the Prevention Unit for the Department of Neighborhood and Community Services, is going to be looking at the questions and putting them out to the group. We have John Berlin with us, who is a park management specialist for the Fairfax County Park Authority. We have Flor Phillips, who is the Director of Child Care Assistance, And we have Anne Marie Toohey, the Deputy Director for the Office for Children. So at this time, I encourage you, if you haven't already, to please add any questions that you might have into the chat, and we will do our best to answer as many as we can in the time that we have remaining. Thanks.
All right, thanks everybody for submitting your questions. I've tried my best to group them by category, and so they're not going to be answered necessarily in the order that you asked. But I see one just came up: why are 501c3s ineligible? 501c3s are eligible. It's other classifications of nonprofits. So if you're a 501c, 501(c)(7) or something else, then you're not eligible. But as a nonprofit, you must have a 501c3 designation. So I can answer that one real quick. And just to save time, ones I can answer real quick, I will go ahead and just do that. We are located in, this is for a community-based organization. We are located in Arlington, but serve Fairfax County residents. Are we eligible? The answer is yes. So for a lot of the place-based ones, if you are a pool or if you are a sports organization, you must be located in Fairfax, serving Fairfax residents. Childcare, after-school program, you must be in Fairfax. As a nonprofit organization, a safety net organization, you can be located outside of Fairfax as long as you are serving Fairfax County residents. A couple of questions about CCFP. That stands for Consolidated Community Funding Pool. You do not have to be a CCFP grant recipient in order to be eligible for this program. Again, this is related to the community-based organization safety net category. But there are 7 different categories of services that we fund under the CCFP. You must provide at least one of those services. And there are things like housing or healthcare. Most of you that are here as nonprofits fit under one of those categories. If you go to the website, you can see exactly what those categories are. The question, will 2020 nonprofit sustainability grant awardees be allowed to participate in the grant? I think we already answered that. The answer is yes. Here's a question for childcare. So Flora, I'm going to turn this one to you. I am a subsidy provider, but don't currently have any subsidy children. Will I be eligible?
Hi, this is Flor. Yes, you will be eligible as long as you have an agreement with Child Care Assistance and Referral to provide services.
Great, thank you. And if we run both childcare and out of school time, are they both eligible? And the answer is yes. You need to submit a separate proposal for each of those categories, but you can only receive one award. If it turns out that you go through that and we've got you in line to receive both awards, we're going to give you the one that gives you the most money. We've got a number of questions about financial hardship. And first was, do CBOs have to document the financial hardship, either a decline in revenue or an increase in COVID-related expenses in the application? If so, how? Yes, you do. And we've talked about submitting the tax forms. But here's a question we've seen a couple of times. In particular, we've got some folks who have had to file an extension to their taxes, and so they have not yet submitted their 2020 taxes. Is there something else that they can do to demonstrate that fiscal hardship? And I will turn it over to the team to answer that one.
Yes, this is Sarah Allen. I can answer that. Yes, if you have not yet filed your taxes or have had to file an extension, you will have an opportunity to upload a profit and loss income statement to show your revenue. So we will have an ability when you apply to be able to fill out a form that can show that.
Great, thank you. If we have not experienced financial hardship, are we eligible to apply for COVID mitigation tactics? I could not tell if those are separate eligibility criteria or combined. The financial hardship piece is a piece of eligibility. So you do have to be able to demonstrate the financial hardship, either reduction in revenue or increase in COVID-related expenses from 2019 to 2020. So if you cannot demonstrate that, you will not be eligible for a grant. Do we need to demonstrate that financial hardship across our full agency, or simply for the department or piece of the agency that is delivering the safety net services? And Sarah, I'm going to turn that one over to you.
Sure. I believe we are able to look at it at a program level. But what we will do is we will go back and research that just a little bit more and answer it in the FAQs. I completely understand that one section of an organization may have actually been doing fine and another area may not have. So again, I believe that it's program related, but we will find out some more information, and please look at the FAQs and we will answer that more thoroughly.
Thank you. Does the revenue decrease exclude any COVID grants received? So I believe we answered that one. The answer is yes. So if you have received local, federal, or state COVID assistance funding from the county or Virginia or the feds, you can decrease that from your revenue for 2020. And so I think there was also a question of how do we document that. I believe there will be instructions in when you submit your stuff, probably, unless Sarah's have a specific answer. My guess is that you would just need to include an award letter or something showing that that was part of your revenue. Yep. Eligible costs question. For what time frame can costs be incurred? And I can't remember that off the top of my head, so I'm going to turn that over to one of you all.
Sure, that's March 2020.
Thank you. All right, lots of questions about, so March 2020 through, there's not currently an end date, so through now, correct? At least. You're muted.
It would be through the time of award, so it's not prospective.
Got it. Thank you. All right, lots of questions about the vulnerability pieces. When will we know what the community index is and what those areas are?
Okay, I can take that. So vulnerable communities, the index that we are creating is still in process. We hope to have it ready by within the next week or so. All of this information will be included in the application. And what you just need to remember is, as you're describing your programs, both where you're located, where your potentially where your residents or your those that you serve are located, that is how we will be connecting it to the vulnerability index. So you all have that information already, but we will make sure that it's very clear both on the website and in the application to see how it connects and how it is factored into your potential prioritization of funding. So again, these are communities that will be articulated, and they are looking at the economic conditions, the health aspects, the negative aspects of COVID-19. And so those are communities that, but the data points specifically are going to be shared with you as soon as we have it. And again, we want to be able to share that information with senior leadership, and it will be approved, but please know that you have that information. We're not going to be asking you to get other data points for the preparation of this application.
Thank you. Sorry, let me Lost my place right there. All right, some questions about the award amounts. How are the award amounts determined? You've seen, since that question came in, Sarah showed you the different award amounts for each category. That information is also on the website. Can we receive more than the max award if we demonstrate need in multiple categories? The answer is no. You're going to be able to receive an award for no more than one category. But again, we will give you the award that is the highest. So if you otherwise would have received a grant of $18,000 in one category, but $12,000 in the other, we're going to give you the $18,000 grant. Is there more funding coming after this grant? Sarah, I don't know if you have any answers to that one.
Sure. What I can tell you is that at this point, we have the $10 million. We will be assessing how many applicants we were able to satisfy, what our lotteries looked like, how many people we were able to serve, and then bring that forward to see if there's a potential for additional funding. At this point, it is just the $10 million, but we are assessing it as we go along. And you know, there are opportunities through ARPA to potentially do more later, but we don't have that authorization yet. And we will just make sure we keep you all posted about any other either extension of this program or additional types of programs from ARPA funding.
Thanks. Okay, now the rest are not necessarily categorized anymore because these are ones that came in after we started answering questions. So we're going to try and get through them as smoothly as possible. And they're also not necessarily in the order that they were asked. I assume that 0 full-time equivalent staff means that an application can apply without any permanent staff. Yes, that is correct. Can we compare, this is a question back to the financial hardship, can we compare 2019 and 2020 earned income and program fees to show loss, to show our loss? So just a portion of the total revenue, not including other revenue? Sarah's, I don't know if you have an answer to that one.
If I'm understanding you correctly, I believe that would be sufficient, but we can also put that in the FAQs just to make sure we have an accurate answer for everyone. But if I'm following you correctly, that does seem reasonable, but we will get back to you.
Thanks. If we have a nonprofit organization and a separate for-profit business, can both organizations apply for separate grants? And so if they are separate, completely separate organizations, if they can apply for anything that they are eligible for. So yes. The second part of that question though says, can they apply for grants focusing on different types of outreach? I just encourage you to go back and look at the eligible kinds of expenses. This is not necessarily a program focused grant where we are providing funding to implement a program, but it's to support your organization's overall financial health. Can our organization size be adjusted to account for the fact that most of our work is being done by volunteers and paid staffing levels are smaller in comparison? Let me turn that over to the Sarahs. My belief is based on our past ones that the answer is no, that the FTE calculations is just that. It's the it's paid full-time, it's paid staff full-time equivalents. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. Are houses of worship eligible to apply if they were unable to provide after-school programs for children last year due to COVID-19? So yes, what we'll be looking at for out-of-school time programs is actually the numbers that you served in 2019, so prior to the pandemic. So that's how we'll be determining the size of your program. You do, however, have to be planning to open and be providing services this school year. So for the coming fall. We drew down from our reserves to sustain the organization. So our reserves are down to near nothing. Can we also remove this reserve fund when counting decline in revenue? That's a question for the Sarahs.
Can you repeat it one more time, Jesse?
Sure. They drew down their reserves to sustain their organization. Can they remove that as a source? So that would show up as a source of revenue, because they took from their reserves. Basically, my understanding would be that there's a rainy day fund, and they use that to make up for lost revenue. So their balance sheet may look like they had a stable level of revenue. Can they document that and show that as a decline?
Sure. So I apologize that I keep having to say this, but I am going to have to look up that one as well. There's a lot of moving parts to this, and each scenario is quite complicated and nuanced. So I don't want to misspeak about that scenario. We have had that scenario a number of times. It's not that unusual. So again, I'm going to refer you to the FAQs, and we will get that answer for you.
Thank you. All right, a couple of pool questions. If a community pool had to collect an assessment from members in order to cover pool costs, how would we account for this as a loss in revenue?
John, you want to go ahead and start, and I can.
Well, again, I'll follow Sarah's lead, say we would certainly want to look into the specifics of that. But if you're collecting an assessment, that is a type of revenue. So we would need to investigate just with the accounting folks to make sure that that lines up. That would count as revenue that was collected during that year.
And I would just add that you may not be able to show a decrease in that scenario. So you'd have to show in other areas, was there a decrease in revenue, and or was there an increase in expenditures because of COVID? So we'd have to work that through, but we can tease that out a little bit more in the FAQs.
Thank you. If we do not charge separately for our pool, can we apply? And if we had to keep the pool in working order but could not open due to the lack of lifeguards, can we apply?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Thank you. Hey, Floor, are Head Start programs eligible?
Flora, are you muted?
Oh, sorry, I was.
Are Head Start programs eligible?
As long as the program is regulated and in the county and is meeting all other eligibilities, they are eligible.
Great, thank you. I think we answered this one about how you would document other COVID relief funding that you've received, so that you can deduct it from your 2020 income. We will make sure that that information is detailed in the application process itself. There's a question, is it okay if we use Fairfax County community centers and libraries for after school or holiday events? So there was a piece in there about after school programs not being eligible if they are fully funded by the county. For most of you, this is not something you have to worry about at all. If it is something that is specific to yours, we are going to reach out to you directly ahead of time to let you know exactly what you are eligible and not eligible for. If you don't hear from us about this, you do not need to worry about that at all, okay? We've mentioned whether there would be other grant opportunities.
Jesse, I saw one that said that we mentioned that you have to be a 501c3 to qualify. Most community pools are 501c7 organizations, not 501c3. The presentation said that community-based pools qualify, so this is conflicting information.
Well,
Did you
actually, I
answer that?
should. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, so the legislation specifically as it relates to pools, it must be a 501c3. It cannot be a 501c7. And if you are a community-based pool that has 501c7 status, you are not eligible.
Thank you. Just to be clear, don't shoot the messenger. This is not the county's decision, right? This is the federal legislation. What if you didn't have a reduction in revenue, but you still had an outsized increase in expenses due to COVID in 2020? That is an eligible way to document financial hardship. So that's good. Our organization is in a unique situation where it looks like our budget has increased, but a good amount of this funding was passed through for emergency safety net support. So most likely you are one of the organizations that Fairfax County gave a whole lot of money to so that you could send it back out to folks who needed to pay rent or buy food and that kind of stuff. Sarah, can you discuss how that will be accounted for in looking at financial hardship?
Sure. We had that question come up already, and we're going to provide that answer in the FAQ, but we are absolutely cognizant of that, and we will get you that answer. The other types of funding that you received, of course, are not applicable. So in other words, you can reduce it from your total revenue costs. So I'm hoping that that's the same there, but we're going to have to, we did not have the answer to that prior to this webinar. So we'll also add it in the FAQs.
Thank you. We've talked about CCFP categories. We talked about the 501c7. We talked about the pool thing, other grants. I'm sorry, mine stuff is not necessarily in the same order that you see it. Will a daycare within a house of worship qualify? And I think I can answer that one quickly. In general, yes. So there are some specific restrictions that are placed on faith-based organizations. That information is in the FAQs. But in general, as long as you meet all of the other eligibility requirements, then yes. That is all of the questions that I see in the chat. So we'll give folks another minute or so if they want to put anything in there. In the meantime, any of our staff have any other thoughts or things that actually, let me
Jesse,
come up
I saw a question that I'm not sure. I apologize if you already answered this, but there was a question, and there's two that are kind of related about, we sought an extension for 2020 tax returns, so are not able to make the comparison between 2019 and 2020 revenue.
Yeah, so we talked about there will be, yeah, that was
Okay,
one of the earlier ones. There will be additional financial reporting that you can submit.
Okay, and similar to the 990, not ready yet. Similar.
Yeah.
Answer.
So yep, there'll be other financial forms, and so that will be in there. So just to clarify, no, 501c7 pools are not eligible. So sorry about that. And all right. Question, will the consolidated community funding pool funding be expanded to provide additional opportunities? The CCFP grant cycle opens, is that this fall, Sarah?
It is. It will be launched in September, and our funding, there's been a slight increase in funding, but nothing substantial. However, there is a significant amount of other resources, the CARES Act, this funding, emergency rental assistance that is going into the community. But our CCFP award, or excuse me, RFP process will start in September, and we obviously always encourage people to apply for that.
Thank you. Does the 2019-2020 does that thing refer to our fiscal year, the county's fiscal year, or the calendar year? Sarah's. I believe it is your fiscal year.
Your fiscal year.
Yep. So your organization's fiscal year. Question about other funding. So if you receive PPP funds, does that need to be deducted from the grant amount, or does it need to be declared? It's not exactly sure what you mean by the grant amount, but you can decrease your 2020 revenue by the amount that you received. So if you received $100,000 in PPP funding, you can decrease your 2020 revenue in order to show that financial hardship by that $100,000. And we will provide instructions on exactly how to do that. So that will make it easier for you to demonstrate that financial hardship. Question again about the time of expenses. So somebody missed that answer, but goes back to March of 2020.
Correct.
Right, through the time that you apply. That is the time that of expenses that are covered. So about a year and a half. Is it possible for all funding to be expended in the child care provider's priority area? My guess is a yes, but I'll turn it over to Fleur to answer that. Is it possible that all the funds would be spent for child care?
Yes, is very possible.
Yeah.
I think, hi, this is Anne Marie. We anticipate that there'll be funding for programs in the priority area, as well as for programs that are not in the priority area, and that will be through a lottery system.
Thank you. Does our entire service population need to fit the vulnerable community criteria, or can a portion of it fit? So let me turn that over to Sarah, although I think it's a little bit different depending on the category. Am I right?
I would agree. It depends on what program you're applying for, and excuse me, what sector you're applying in, and what your individual situation is. So I would say you could submit maybe more detailed question through the email address right there, and we can talk you through it that way.
Great, thanks. Starting to see a lot of questions about whether or not we're going to share all of this. Yes, we will post this recording on the website. I believe we will probably post the slides themselves on the website. We will take these questions and answers and add them to the Q&A that are on the website, so you will all get all of that. Is this grant a one-time only fund, or will it continue every 3 months? This is a one-time grant for at least for the time being. We don't have any information that says that it would continue after that. It would be a one-time grant. Can you also deduct the Rebuild Virginia grant? My assumption is yes. Can I just get a nod? That's the state COVID funding, relief funding. If you receive that, you can deduct it just like you could deduct PPP or a county grant from your revenue, correct?
Jesse, this is Sarah. I believe so. Yes. We can answer that as well, but I believe that's in the same line as all of the other ones we've talked about.
Thank you. There's been a couple of questions about whether your specific organization will apply. We're not going to answer the specific organizations, but we will ask you to please take a look at the details of the eligibility, and then please email us if you have specific questions. Funding question is funding is not for current financial hardships, but for a 2020 decline in revenue. Is that correct? Yeah, that's how you need to be able to demonstrate that you had hardship, is by comparing 2019 to 2020. Can we deduct the nonprofit sustainability grant funds? Yes, you can. That's CARES Act funding, so that's another thing that you can deduct. All right, last call for questions.
Jesse, I saw one about can people apply for the funding pool and this grant?
Oh, thank you.
No problem. The answer is yes, absolutely.
Yep.
And I want to emphasize that, yes, a transcript of the Q&A that we've just had in this past 30 minutes will be available. Please, we'll put it on the website with the other FAQs, but please give us a few days to put it to pull it off the recording and get it posted up there. And answers that we have to go find answers to, questions that we have to go find answers to, will also take a few days.
And my guess is, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, is that we're not going to post this as a transcript, but we will put this in the format of the existing question answers, so that everything is by topic area.
Correct.
What proof is needed to show the federal funding? Again, we will put that information online and in the application, and try to make it as easy as possible for you. Can you apply if you receive contributory funding from the county? My guess is that yes, you can, but I'll let Sarah answer that one.
Yes, any type of, someone does not have to receive any type of funding from the county to be eligible to apply. And the type of funding that you get from the county is also not relevant. However, if you get funding for the same purpose, we would not allow that, of course, for you to be able to ask for both, for funding that you're already getting paid for, or for resources that you're already getting covered in the contributory fund. So the type of funding you get from the county is not necessarily relevant in this situation.
How about funding from foundations that are COVID related? So if you received a grant, for example, maybe from the Northern Virginia Community Foundation that was specific to COVID relief, can you deduct that from your revenue?
That's going to have to be, we will batch all of that together about what is potentially deductible from awards you've received previously. We will add that to the list.
All right. My guess is it'll be the same thing if you had a private funder that donated COVID relief funds. So
exactly. So we are almost at time, Jesse. If you want to just take maybe one more.
It looks like that is all of them. I believe we got them all.
Great. Well, Jesse, thank you for moderating this. As we shared, there's a lot of moving parts, but it is an exciting program. We hope that we answered the majority of your questions. We will work with our colleagues to make sure that all of the other ones are answered. We wanted to make sure that we got this webinar out early enough to be able to get you all thinking about your application and what documents you might need, and if this is something you're interested in applying for, recognizing that we still have a couple of answers that we need to find and be able to share with you. So thank you all. You have all of the information here. Continue to look at the website, and we wish you all good luck in applying for these funds. And we thank you all for all that you do for our community. And please let us know if you have any questions. And Sarah or Jesse, if you have anything else, you can close it out. No? Okay, Sarah, anything else?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay, thank you all very much, and we will see you soon.